Good morning.
Good morning. Good tea morning. We're having our favorite tea. We are in our apartment and today we are going to answer a bunch of your questions. A few days ago we made a post on our YouTube community tab and we asked you guys if there were any questions that you had for us because we were going to make a Q&A video, which is, ta-da, it's this video. And we, to our surprise, got like a lot of answers. I think the last time we did a Q&A was when we were at 20,000 subscribers and we got like 10 questions.
Yeah.
And this time we had over 100.
100 comments and a lot of people asked more questions, so 150, 200.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be able to answer them all, but
we will try to get back to everyone, yeah.
Were the same or like very much related to each other, so we kind of grouped them into the most common topics.
Thank you so much for everyone who asked questions. It's so nice to see that you're so interested in knowing more.
It's difficult to talk when you're drinking bubble tea. With the bubbles in your mouth and you're talking and saying,
One moment.
1 second.
Alrighty, let's dive into it, people. So we have a bunch of questions here. I had to copy all the questions that we had, put them into a file and separate them into categories. That's how many there were. So the first category is Taiwan related questions.
So lots of people ask us about Taiwan, what do we think about Taiwan and all those things. So first question, I want to ask you three things that impressed you the most about Taiwan: food, locations, cities, anything that you have ever been touched
by. Probably, presumably emotionally.
Yeah, okay. I think number one, I think it's maybe a little bit cliche to say, since we've been saying it a lot and something that comes up a lot, but it's just the truth. I think the people here are like the best thing here in Taiwan.
About Taiwan, it's true.
The people are so nice. They really go out of your way to help you and to make sure you have a good time. So for me, that's definitely number one.
It's also probably something that really stands out to us because compared to other countries, we've of course spent a lot of time in Taiwan and we've gotten to know some people here on a personal level, which just I think amplifies the kindness. But yeah, the people, number one thing about Taiwan. Okay, number two, which food?
Big fan of the beef noodle soup. It's my favorite. I love beef noodle soup, it's so good. It's probably the thing I'm going to miss the most about Taiwan.
Location? Which city or place?
I think Green Island.
Yeah, we really love Green Island.
I'm hesitant between Kaohsiung and Green Island because we spent 6 weeks in Kaohsiung and we really loved it there.
The vibe, because the city is so livable and nice and green.
But I think I think Green Island was the most surprising to us. It was so relaxed, it felt a bit more remote, it felt a bit like a different place than mainland Taiwan, so that one. So 3 things, okay.
So Leopold asks, would you recommend to friends to come visit Taiwan? I think we definitely would.
Yes, we would, for sure. I mean, there's so much to see, to do here, so many great things to discover. And even when we looked up the highlights to do in Taiwan, there was so much. But then when we looked further, because we've been here for a long time. There's the nice things you can do in visitors just keeps on coming, so.
Yeah, we would definitely highly recommend it. And a lot of our friends watch our videos, so they know that we would recommend traveling to Taiwan because we're, I think, overall quite positive about Taiwan.
And my mom already told me that she would like to visit Taiwan, so maybe in the future she will come here. Next question from Jalen. Oh, Jalen, thank you so much, by the way, for all the sometimes Chinese translations that you do on the posts that we make and stuff like that.
On the YouTube community page, that is really much appreciated.
What do you think Taiwan needs to improve? Do you have a chance to travel to Taiwan again in the future? And before you leave Taiwan, will there be a fan meeting?
For me, the thing that could be improved in Taiwan is probably the amount of English information that's out there. Most of our research is done online. We can't speak Chinese and we also don't type Chinese into Google. So there's a lot of information out there about Taiwan, but there's not that much to find in English. For example, one of our little pet peeves here was the public transport, taking the buses especially. Sometimes resulted in us waiting for a long time and not getting the bus schedule correct. We think that may have more to do with our inability to speak the language and to understand every part of the bus schedule.
And maybe like sometimes more English menus in restaurants would be nice too.
That didn't really, I think that I like that actually.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it feels exotic, you know, you're in a place where you don't speak the language and they're gonna give you this food and have to use Google Translate. It's an adventure.
One thing I would maybe say is the traffic. A small incident we had with the truck, which wasn't that big of a deal to us. In case you don't know what happened, we were doing a road trip from east to west Taiwan, and there was a way lane, like 2 lanes on each side, and there was a trucker taking us over, and there was another car blocking him, and the truck just like almost ran us off the road. Or like,
he was tailgating.
And he was tailgating us, and it was a bit scary. We filmed it because we were just filming at that moment.
Apparently that moment to Taiwanese media was super interesting because it came on the news.
Yeah.
We got requests for interviews.
That is so dangerous.
砂石车狂按喇叭，车子越来越靠近要超车，让行驶在内线道的比利时情侣档吓坏了，而且还一连遇到2台。
And then he nearly drove me off the road. I mean, this is just insane. Super dangerous driving. But anyway, the traffic in general, I think, can be improved because people in Taiwan here are super, super nice, and 99% of them are really also super nice in traffic. But there's this small but significant minority.
Significant enough on the road.
Significant enough on the road that drive like crazy. I mean,
yeah, they leave their kindness at the door every time they get in the car.
Every time we've been in a car like with somebody, or when we rented one and drove somewhere, we always saw just crazy things happening. Be it people just weaving through traffic at high speeds, or people just using the emergency lane to overtake, or people driving in the wrong direction. In general, I think the traffic here is quite good, and people drive very civil.
They're civil. I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah,
it's civil.
so I mean, it's not madness. It's not madness here on the road like you sometimes see in other countries. But there's like this small but significant amount of people who drive like crazy.
Yeah, who just do whatever.
I think it would be good to
address that. Yeah. Do you have a chance to travel to Taiwan again in the future? We're already thinking about that.
We're already making plans actually. We don't know exactly when because, you know, of all that's happening in the world.
At some point doing a trip that would cover like Japan and the Philippines, because we're so close to both those countries now. We would have loved to continue this trip from there and go to Japan and the Philippines.
We had hoped that the pandemic situation had improved by now, that we could go to Japan. I mean, just a 2-hour flight to Japan, so it's really convenient. But we would love to come back in the future, travel to Japan, maybe travel to the Philippines, and then visit Taiwan again, because I feel like we still have some things to do.
Yeah, we've seen like the south and the east. We feel like you've seen that pretty thoroughly. But then in the north here in Taipei, there's gonna be some stuff that we're gonna miss. And then before you leave Taiwan, will there be a fan meeting? So this is something that a lot of people have asked us, if we're gonna do a meetup, like a big meetup for all our subscribers.
We actually wanted to do it, and we had been thinking about it. We actually contacted some people to just like see how that could work and what we could do, and also investigate what the current government rules are.
Given the pandemic.
Yeah, given the pandemic, but we have gained 40,000 subscribers since we came here to Taiwan, which is quite a lot, and if we organize a meeting, there would be a lot of people. We don't really have a way to tell if it will be 50 people or 500 or maybe 1,000 people. I have no idea. Probably it wouldn't be 1,000, but you never know. And we feel it's just not, well, we cannot organize that in a safe way given the current pandemic. I know there haven't been a lot of cases or any cases in the past 3 months. Now there's been one, I think. Still, it wouldn't be responsible for you guys and for Taiwan in general to do that, so that's why in the end we decided not to.
Yeah,
because we really would have loved to do it, and we hesitated for a long time, but that's the reason.
Because we love meeting people who watch our videos.
Oh, yeah.
We met a bunch of people who watched our videos. You may have seen it in some of our videos. We ran into people who watched our videos, who recognized us on the street, and we always love that.
Yeah.
That's really, really nice. But we also feel that with everything that's going on right now, it wouldn't be very responsible and maybe also slightly risky, because we are in a foreign country where we do not understand all of the rules.
Yeah.
We don't want to risk anyone's health, and we also don't want to risk not living by the rules or anything.
Because there's also a bunch of rules in place, like how many people you can have in one place and what are like the requirements to do that. So one of the questions that came back in the Q&A, and actually a lot of people have been asking questions about it in the comments, especially our quarantine videos. When we entered Taiwan, we had to do a 2-week quarantine because it was mandatory by the government. It's still in place, the 2-week quarantine. We booked an apartment here. We showed it actually in our videos where we did an apartment tour, so if you're interested, go check that out. So people have contacted us for the contact details of that apartment. We gave them out to everybody who asked, but I think a few weeks ago I heard back from some people that the owner is no longer accepting people who have to do quarantine. Apparently also the government requirements have been strictened a bit for places where you can do it. You can still pick anything you want, like an Airbnb, an apartment, or a hotel, or government facility or something like that. So there's no real requirement of where you can do it, but there's some requirements that it needs to have, at least for people to be staying there. Kwang Yu asked us if at arrival you get a list of apartment or hotels, but we didn't get any list like that. I don't think it exists. I do know that if you don't have anything, the government does have a facility where you can go. What I would recommend if you're coming to Taiwan is just go on Airbnb, and I know there's lots of Airbnb owners who don't do it anymore at the moment because of probably government rules, and they could get into trouble for doing some things not right, so probably that's why they avoid it. When we came to Taipei, for example, I messaged a bunch of Airbnb, 20 or 30 or 40 people, write a message, hey, I'm coming to Taiwan, I will be there, I need to do 2 weeks quarantine, is it possible to stay at you, and just send it to 40 or 50 people, I don't know.
And in any case, if you want to stay in like a hotel or an Airbnb, do not wait until you get to the airport hoping you will get a list of places you can go to. Book it before you get to Taiwan. Make sure that is like set in stone, because you don't want to find yourself at the airport supposedly to be quarantining and then not having a place. Do you have to pay for the stay in the quarantine and everything out of your own pocket, or whether there's any form of subsidy or support provided by the CECC here in Taiwan? The general principle is you have to pay everything out of your own pocket, so your Airbnb, all your expenses, you pay for that yourself. But there is the possibility to request a stipend from the government, like a small compensation of 1,000 NTD per person per day, which is roughly 33 US dollars, that they give you if you have to do the quarantine. When we first arrived, that used to still be applicable to foreigners as well.
Everybody who entered could request it, but I think at the end of June they changed it, and it's only like residents and Taiwanese people who can request it. Now I'm not sure about the exact rules.
But we did apply for that stipend because it seemed to apply to us. So we just had to go down to the city council or the district office, and we had to fill in some paperwork. We requested it. We haven't gotten word as to whether we're gonna get it. That concludes the questions specifically for Taiwan, but we actually also got a bunch of other very interesting questions.
Yes, indeed.
And the next category we're moving into is Belgium.
We are originally from Belgium, and we lived there for
all our lives, except for the last year and a half.
30 years. And last 1.5 year we have been on the road, so we haven't been living there, but
we are back in business. We were out of business for a little while here because we're having some problems with our camera. Sometimes it refuses to acknowledge that a memory card is there, and therefore we cannot record. So we tried every single memory card we have before we got it to work again. Anyway, switched off the air conditioning for the video because the audio will be better, so we're just...
Oh yeah. Oh.
It's gonna hurt. Doesn't that hurt? Anyway.
Not very comfortable, as you would expect from seeing it. Anyway, back to the Q&A.
It did not agree. Back to Q&A. What question were we on?
Okay, we're on the questions for Belgium. What is our native language? Start with that one. Our native language is Dutch. Belgium has 3 official languages. The north speaks Dutch, south speaks French, and there's a teeny tiny part in the east that speaks German.
Yeah.
And Angela asked, do you ever film YouTube video in Dutch? If not, would you consider making one with English subtitle, of course? Ja, dat zouden we kunnen doen. Maar het zal heel erg raar zijn om tegen de camera in het Nederlands te spreken, denk ik.
Je spreekt nu ook totaal niet lekker. Dus we zullen de volgende 2 vragen beantwoorden in het Nederlands. We hebben het er al een paar keer over gehad dat dat super raar zou zijn voor ons. Ik vind het mega awkward nu.
We zijn het gewoon in het Engels te spreken tegen de camera. In het Nederlands is het best wel raar.
Ja, het is best wel raar.
Maar een hele video gaan we niet doen, denk ik.
Nee.
Het zou een beetje vreemd zijn.
En Angela vraagt ook, just wondering whether we would be even funnier in Dutch. Ik denk niet dat het zo grappig zou zijn om te kijken voor mensen die geen Nederlands spreken, naar ons die Nederlands spreken. Omdat mopjes zijn vaak heel erg taalgebonden. En als ik zou kijken naar een Chinees programma met enkel Engelse ondertitels of Nederlandse ondertitels, zou het niet grappig zijn voor mij, want ik snap niks van wat er gezegd wordt. Maar het is echt heel raar eigenlijk op dit moment om Nederlands te spreken tegen de camera.
Ja. Alright, back to English.
Omdat we het gewoon niet gewoon zijn.
Anyway, when you're out filming, do you speak English the whole day? I assume when you finish the day's filming, you revert to Flemish. What other languages do you speak? Alright, well, when we're filming, we mostly still speak Dutch to each other.
In between
the filming. It may sound a bit weird to you, but I don't know, it just comes natural to us. And to be honest, at work, we were working in a pretty international environment where there were people speaking Dutch, English, and French. So I think I at least got really used to just switching languages.
Yeah.
So I guess we're pretty used to it. And
switching between languages, and also it still allows us to film like the in between parts because we're used to once we film. Like once the camera's on, we just switch to English and it's natural. It's not weird for us to speak English to each other whilst we film because like a lot of people have told us that they think it's funny how we have quite a bit of banter on camera, which we also do off camera. And actually our banter off camera when we're not filming and just hanging out, a lot of times that's also like English or referencing English jokes because a lot of the funny stuff that we read online or like movie references that we use to crack a couple of jokes, that's in English. So we're actually quite used to joking around in English, and for us it just works, I guess. Okay, what other languages do you speak?
So I think the languages I mean, Dutch is our native language. English is the second language we're best in. I guess after that would be French. I think our French used to be pretty good. So like we could, I mean, I would use it in a business context or hold meetings and things like that. Now I think my French has degraded a lot because I haven't been using it for the past 1.5 years. But I guess if I would have to use it, would come back again.
We know a little bit of German.
We know a little bit of German. I speak also a little bit of Spanish because I had Spanish for 2 years in university.
Moving away from the Belgium questions into the category personal questions. First question: tell us your love story. You can tell them.
Yeah, like my life used to be really good and I used to be a very happy person, and then
And then I came and made it even better?
Yes, she came and made it even better. Well, we actually met in school. We actually met on the school bus.
When we were 13, 14 years old?
Yeah, when we were 13, 14 years old. We actually briefly had a relationship when we were 14 years old, about 1.5 years.
Yeah.
But that ended, and then about 3 years later, when we were 18, we got back together again. And we've been together ever since we were about 18. It's about 13 years now.
13 years,
13 years, almost 13 and a half.
March 3rd is our anniversary, so
3rd.
2020 was 13 years.
Yep.
So yeah, we've been together for a very long time.
We had been living together since 2013.
2012. When we got back together, I went to a different university. So you went to a university very close to our hometown, and I still went fairly close to our hometown, depending on how you view a 1 hour ride. For my family, it was like you're moving halfway across the country, but basically it was only 1 hour from where we lived. So I was in a dorm, and we used to see each other only on the weekends.
Yep. Good times.
Good times. But and that lasted.
We see each other 24/7.
That lasted all the way until we finished university. Then we moved in together in our apartment that we bought.
We lived together for 6
years.
6 years.
Yeah.
And then we started traveling together. It's a bit.
Now we're together all day, every day, and he tells me so often how he loves it.
Send help if you're watching this.
A bunch of people have also asked us, which is remarkable to us. We've gotten a lot of questions in recent weeks of, do you guys ever fight?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is, of course,
yes,
we fight.
We do fight.
Like, every couple fights. Like, sometimes we show like a small disagreement or something on the camera. Obviously, when there's an actual fight, our first thought is not to film it.
But yeah, we do fight, and actually we fight a bit more probably now than we used to when we're still at home. Like, we used to fight very little, I guess, but now it's a little bit more because we're together 24/7, not just traveling together, living together, but also making YouTube videos together, editing them together, and our lives like completely melted together.
Yeah.
Which I guess.
So if one of us has a bad day,
Yeah.
it immediately rubs off on, you know, if you're like making a few passive aggressive comments, the other person is always there.
Yeah.
We don't ever want people to think like we're cute and nice to each other all the time. We're not. Everyone fights, and so do we.
Yeah.
But people ask us, what is the main thing that we fight about?
I guess that's mostly to do with the videos that we make, since, I mean, traveling is really, really nice, and then on top of that, filming it all the time makes it just a little bit more like involved and stressful sometimes. You might be like going somewhere and like the place you're going might be closing, but you still want to record something along the way, and that sometimes leads a little bit to stress. I think that's the thing we're quarrel a bit more about.
To give you two very specific examples of where I am usually the cause of why we fight.
Yeah.
To be clear, most of the time, it's not that I'm it most of the time. No. I would even say it's Naick most of the time. But for example, I tend to underestimate the amount of time it takes me to get ready to go to a certain place, and we already procrastinate to the point where we're like, okay, now we sort of need to get going, otherwise we're not going to be able to film everything that we wanted
like
and do everything we want.
Need to be somewhere and it's like, oh yeah, it's 3 o'clock now, we need to be there in 1 hour, can you go take a shower so we can be there in time? And she'll be like, oh no, I want to chill a little bit more for 5 minutes, and then half an hour she'll still be there, and like then we are sometimes too late, and then we fight a bit.
Okay, so that's one example. Another one is, for example, I'm a bit slow because I'm a bit perfectionist at editing our videos. Sometimes we plan to post a video on a certain day, we don't get there. It can lead to like an argument or an irritation. I mean, that's just an example. But to be clear, our fights don't ever really last very long.
And it's not big fights. It's more like disagreements where we're like a bit cross at each other, and it's not like we fight and yell at each other. It's
I would say that 90% of our fights are resolved within 15 minutes of it first occurring, because we
that's also something we learned. I think spending so much time together, like before when you had a fight and you went to work or something like that, you could just let it rest for a bit and like it would resolve a bit,
or not,
but then I mean you still had some time to process it, and but now we're together all the time. Like when we have a small fight now, and maybe later we want to go out filming and make a video or edit a video or work together. It's kind of difficult when you're angry at each other to film together. And
even when we fight, we don't really feel bad about it afterwards. We are always nice and respectful to each other. We never shout, we never throw stuff. I mean,
no, we never call each other names, or it's like,
we're always still nice to each other.
Yep, we're just like when we fight, it's more like, it's like, no, you did this, no, you did this, and then
it's more like bickering. It's bickering. That's like the word. Bickering, It's bickering.
And then
it's
we just stop talking to each other for 5 minutes.
And then usually, because someone also asks who is usually the first person to try and resolve it, and then usually I will be like, that's usually how it goes.
A lot of times it's you. It's more almost 50-50.
Yeah, but most of the time, it's a bit more me.
Moving on to the next set of questions, practicals of travel.
That's what we call it.
Yeah, people have been asking us questions about
practicals of travel.
Practicals of travel. First question of Gong Shishiao: how do you deal with homesickness? Well, I guess we don't really get homesick that much. I mean, we do miss our friends and family.
But like proper homesickness?
But like proper homesick, I guess we don't have it so much. Our lifestyle has improved a lot, like compared to when we're still in Belgium. We get to travel and see so many beautiful places. And we miss our friends and family, but we also realize the life that we get in return for not being in Belgium, rather than working at a job for 10 hours a day and being stressed out, which was what our life looked like before.
Which also brings us to the next question by Agung Narmada. How often do we contact them? I think about once a week.
Some people a bit more, some people a bit less, but once a week.
That's what we try to aim for. Okay, so the next question is by Patrick Wang. How do you convince your family, especially your parents, to have a gap year, to quit your job and travel the world? This is definitely difficult to Taiwanese families where the parents always ask for a stable life for the child. To be honest, the short answer to that is we didn't really convince them to let us do anything, because
we just made the decision to do it and then told them about our plan. It's really nice that they agreed with our plan and were supportive of it, but it's not like it was a requirement for us to do it.
No, the thing is, we really wanted to do this. We had a decent plan. It made sense financially. We told them about it rather than asking their permission. If they had said no, I mean, fortunately they were on board and they were all supportive. But if they hadn't been, that wouldn't have stopped us from going. And I think because you mentioned, Patrick, that it's more difficult to a Taiwanese family maybe to accept a decision like that. Maybe that's also a slight difference in culture between Asian culture and more Western culture, because we've talked to a few people here who said that in general, I mean, at least talking to them, for us it seems that Asian parents maybe on average are much more involved in the decision-making process.
Like their family's more close. But I think what helped us a lot is that we just didn't say like, hey mom and dad, you know, next week we're going to leave for 1.5 years. or 1 year. See you later.
Sayonara.
I think for us, we started that plan 2 to 3 years before we left, actually. And I think about 1.5 years before we left, we already started mentioning it to our family. And probably most of them were thinking, yeah, it's a great plan, and a lot of people want to do it and think about doing it. And
it ain't happening.
Maybe it's not happening. But then, yeah, we just mentioned it a couple of times, and then I think slowly it started
sinking in,
seeping in or sinking in. We also explained a little bit that we had been saving up, and we're saving up for it for a long time.
And then next question from Mutton Curry: how did you save up to travel for so long? I think that also ties into what we were just saying. We were pretty fortunate to have well-paying jobs.
Yeah,
basically, I mean, that helped a lot.
We studied in university, and we had jobs that paid quite well.
You were a financial consultant, I was a tax lawyer, so we were able to save, especially towards the end of the 2-3 years during which we saved up for the trip, we were able to save a significant amount.
At least 30-40%, and I think by the last few months, almost 50% of what we were earning. Partially it was because, I mean, our jobs were paying pretty well, and then another big part because, I mean, it's just not enough to earn money. You also don't need to like spend everything. So we were quite careful on what we were spending money on. So for the last year, 1.5 years, we stopped buying clothes unless it was like absolutely necessary. I think in the end, you just had one pair of pants left.
I remember the last week that I had to go to, the last month, maybe even a little bit longer than that. I had like 2 pairs of pants left that I could actually wear to work. So I think it was 3 things combined: the job and the good salary that, in a sense, you could say we got lucky with, even though we worked for it, studied for it, etc.
Yeah, it's still a bit luck.
This is a bit of luck. And then 2 things: careful planning, saving up for a long time, several years. And then the third thing, downgrading your lifestyle.
You have a look at the things you're spending money on, and then just look for yourself, like, what's really important to me. For example, for us, it was spending time with family and friends, or going out for a nice dinner with family and friends. That was the things we enjoyed most.
Yeah.
And we kept like a budget for that, like to go out with them or to have like a really good meal with them sometimes.
Track your expenses for about a month and then look at the different categories, like how much am I spending on food, how much am I spending on recreational stuff like going to restaurants.
Some things might cost a lot more than you realize, especially the small day-to-day stuff, like when you go to a gas station, you pick up a chocolate bar or just 2-3 euros, but when you add that up, 3 euros a day is how much is it? More than 1,000 per year. Next question by Yves Simone is like, travel is fascinating, beautiful, eye-opening. Do you ever get burnt out or exhausted by the intensity of it? Yes, we sort of do. I think we never really got the travel burnout as such. I think some people experience it in a really grave way. I wouldn't call it travel burnout, but definitely we have been travel exhausted, or like we got tired of it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think, for example, there was in December last year when we were in Thailand, we arrived to Chiang Mai. We had been traveling quite fast through China and to Vietnam. Then we arrived to Thailand. It was our last 3 weeks before we head home for the Christmas break. I think then we had something like, it's like we've been moving around so much, and yeah, it's quite intense. Like imagine that you let's say in general, every 3 days you're moving to a new hotel. You have to pack up all your stuff, like find a bus or a train somewhere, get to the next destination. Then go and find your hotel, which sometimes is very easy to do, sometimes takes you an hour. You have to check in, and okay, like where are we? What is this city? Like what are the things
where
to
can
do
I get
here?
water?
Where can I buy water? Where do I buy food? Like, oh, you go somewhere, there's a few restaurants there. Oh, it looks good, but oh, it's too expensive because I mean our budget is limited. Go look around for some cheaper food. All that things, it takes a lot of energy. And on top of that, we film and edit all our videos as well.
But I think probably people listening to you now are like, oh yes, move around every few days and look for new places to eat. That sounds like fun. And it is, like, to be clear, it is a lot of fun.
We don't want to complain. We love traveling and we wouldn't trade it in for anything else.
No.
But it is.
It can be quite exhausting. I mean, this is not like a 3 or 4 week trip. This is like, because a lot of people probably go on a trip like this and then go back home and they have their routine and their home and where they feel comfortable and they have their stuff. And the thing is, when you do this for a very long time, it can be pretty exhausting to not even have the basics of your life in one place and sort it out. So it's really, really nice to have that change all the time, to have the adventure and that change of pace. But it can also sometimes just be a little bit exhausting.
Yeah, and sometimes, I mean, you're just not in the mood for seeing the 10th waterfall or the 10th temple. I mean, temples are really nice, but I think we've been pretty careful.
We've been mindful of that.
In selecting what we do in every country. For example, There's a lot of countries who have beautiful beaches and great waterfalls. But yeah, if you're traveling to, for example, Vietnam and Thailand and Bali, those countries all have waterfalls and beaches. And so I think then we try to be careful and look a little bit like, okay, we'll be going after Vietnam, we're going to Thailand, for example, and Thailand is a really beautiful beach destination, and Vietnam has also beautiful beaches, but maybe it's less known for its beaches. But we plan our beach time more in Thailand and do some other things which Vietnam is really famous about. For example, the tea field in the north, or the Mekong Delta in the south, where you have the beautiful river meandering through the landscape.
What each country is like best for, basically. Yeah. So that you keep a little bit more the wow factor, that you don't see a beach like every week and you're like, by the 10th beach, which is an incredible beach, you're like, oh, it's another beach. It's a patch of sand with some water next to it. That you really keep like the admiration for nature and how great it is, because you're seeing some of the highlights, you know? Yeah, and another way to combat the travel fatigue a little bit is just to slow down when you need to.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, we had planned to stay for 5 days in Chiang Mai, for example, in Thailand when we arrived there, and we ended up staying more than 2 weeks. And if it's necessary, just do it, and just don't keep going when you're not really feeling it. Next one is future.
The future. I thought this was a thing now.
I'm just gonna take this away and put this here.
Anyway,
right.
The future.
A lot of people have been asking us questions about the future, a lot of comments. Also my mom, for example. If you've seen this, hi mom.
First question.
Yeah, a lot of people, what do you think when are you going to leave Taiwan? Where are you going next?
It's by far the most popular question.
Yeah, do you think about your long-term future? Are you going back to your job when you get back to Belgium? What does it look long-term, your plans?
Will we have children?
Maybe we can just answer it in like a bit of one go. That will be easier.
Yeah.
When you're leaving Taiwan, we'll be leaving Taiwan in a couple of days. We've been here for about 5 months now, and I just think it's time to leave.
For a bunch of reasons that we mentioned in one of our previous videos, like our initial visa for Taiwan was for 3 months, and then it was extended to 6 months, which meant we would have to leave beginning of September. Our travel insurance also runs out beginning of September unless we go back to Belgium by that time, which is why at one point we decided that it was a good time to start looking for flights home, leave somewhere mid of August, so that we were sure to be out of here by beginning of September, because we knew that a lot of flights are still being cancelled and rebooked and rescheduled. That is why we decided to go.
And a lot of people ask like, why are you not staying long term in Taiwan, or why don't you get a job here? Well, I think it was never really our plan, and we still don't intend to stay long term in Taiwan. We make YouTube videos about travel, and we love traveling. Obviously, pandemic has made it a lot more difficult.
And we've been very lucky to come here to Taiwan.
We've been very happy to be here in Taiwan. It's been great. We really love Taiwan. It feels like a second home to us.
It does, yeah.
But I mean, we just don't want to stay here anywhere long term at the moment. We just want to explore beautiful places. That maybe brings us to our future plans. We're flying back in a couple of days. We're flying back to Belgium, and when we get to Belgium, we'll have to do 2 weeks of quarantine. Yay!
Woo-hoo!
Another 2 weeks of quarantine.
We're experts at that now.
Yeah, we'll be making a couple of videos about Belgium, because a lot of people have been asking about it, and we're also happy to share our country with you. We've actually never made any videos about it.
It'll be so cool seeing it from a different perspective, and just like trying to make a nice video about it. Be a little bit of a tourist in your own country. That's going to be super nice, because we live there.
When you live somewhere, you don't look at it with tourist eyes, but when we have to make a video, it'll probably we'll have to look at it more like from a tourist, like what would be interesting.
What are the beautiful parts? Yeah. We're really looking forward to that, showing you everything that Belgium has to offer, the nice places to visit, the food. We're also really looking forward to see our friends and family again, of course. And then after that, we do have a plan. The plan is not, because a lot of people have been asking, are we going to go back to our old jobs? Are we going to make a career change? How do we see this going? We are not going to go back to work. We do have a plan to continue traveling safely. We haven't shared it yet because we're not sure with how fast things are sometimes changing that plan is going to effectively work out. And we don't want to get your hopes up until we're sure.
We're still working out the details until we're very sure, but it's I think it's a cool plan. It's very excited, and
we're gonna make some cool videos about it.
It's a plan that will allow us to keep traveling in a very safe way, and probably allow us to be safer than if we would go back to a normal life with a work and a career and a job and
colleagues
everything.
To go back to, and
Yeah, but we will make a video about that very, very soon.
Barbara, you asked us about, do you ever think about your long-term future, about children, a life of less travel, if we'll go back to our previous careers or run a travel business based in Belgium?
Yes, we think about that.
We do think about that. It might not
Actually,
look like it.
No. Well, we do think about it. I mean, at some point we would like to have children, like not now because we're traveling and with the pandemic it's probably not
for us the best time. The lifestyle that we have right now with lots of traveling, growing our YouTube channel to the point where we can hopefully sustain ourselves financially for as long as we want to keep traveling in the same way. And although we don't know what the future will bring longer term, we do think that as long as we do something that we really, really love and we can find a way to make it work financially, at some point there will be a path that is open to us and that's presents itself to us that will allow us to do all those things like having children without necessarily having to say, oh, now we're gonna go back to Belgium and go back to the old lifestyle and the old jobs that we had.
Yeah. I think we're fine with not knowing exactly what it will be, because for now it's going quite well with our YouTube videos and channel, and we have to have some income from it, which is nice. And then
we just want to grow that and see where it takes us, basically. Okay, the final category that we made before we go on to what we call rapid fire is other stuff we couldn't really fit.
Miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous. How do we edit our videos so well? Thank you.
Thank you.
That's really nice to hear that you like our videos and our editing style. Well, we just think it depends a lot on how many videos you make.
Yeah.
By now we've made about 180 videos on our YouTube channel, I think it is. The vast majority of which were made and edited, recorded, etc. in the last year and a half. So I think if you make a lot of videos in a very short period of time, that allows you to each time you start the editing process to see what you're doing well, what you're doing not so well, what you would like to improve to get closer to where you want your videos and your storytelling to be, to use a fancy word.
So in short, like lots of practice actually. Like
Lots of practice.
Before we started doing YouTube, we had absolutely no
experience
in filming or editing. So everything we learned was by doing it and watching some tutorials on YouTube and lots of practice.
And another question is how much time you spend editing for each published video. I think on average that'll be, our videos have gotten longer now so it's more difficult, but I think a 20-minute video takes between 12 and 16 hours for one person to edit.
Yeah, 1.5 days, something like that.
And some people have also asked us, how does the fact that we edit videos, film videos, edit videos, publish videos, how does that affect the quality of our trip? Does it make it better? Does it make it worse because we spend so much time on it?
Yeah.
And in the end, overall, I would say it definitely makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
It gives an extra
There's
dimension.
positives and negatives, obviously, but I think net it's a positive influence.
Because one of the things that you really start looking for when you're making a lot of videos, especially now that we're here in Taiwan for a long time, you could easily make 20 Taiwan videos and make them all similar. Like in every video you go have bubble tea, go have some food, go out into nature. We try to look for things that make a place unique, like, you know, that make it stand out and different from other.
When you go somewhere, I mean, for example, if you visit a temple and you visit it as a tourist, sometimes when you're not paying that much attention, you just go in and say, oh yeah, nice temple. Yeah, the roof, the roof looks intricately carved and all that stuff. Intricately carved. But yeah, like when you have to make a video about it, you need to force yourself a bit to like look more closely and look for the beautiful things. So that's really definitely a big upside. Like our YouTube channel also gives us a goal and something to do and something to work on.
Towards, in a cliche way, but it's true. It adds some meaning. To the travels for us. It takes up a lot of time to film the videos and edit the videos, and people might think, isn't it nicer to just walk around, like, and, you know, chill in the place you are? After a while, sometimes that would get boring, so we appreciate the places more because we look for the good stuff. It's nice because we have this goal, and that more than makes up for the fact that we spend a lot of time, like 1 in 2 days is spent just editing, not going out exploring. That more than makes up for it. We just love making videos, so.
Now, since we received so many questions, we're gonna do a rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
We're just gonna ask all the questions and then answer them like one sentence, okay? I will start reading one, you answer it.
Okay.
Have you ever tasted Taiwan's instant noodles?
Yes, we have. These are our favorites. They're super good, and we have way more of these than we would even be comfortable showing you. What do you want to say to COVID-19?
Fuck you, COVID-19. Fuck you.
Screwing up 2020.
When you travel around countries, you're risking your life, financial problems. What ideals support you in fulfilling your dream of global travel? One sentence.
One sentence. Travel is the thing we love most. It makes us happy, makes us have a good time. We couldn't think of any nicer way to spend our time, so...
There's no real big ideal, actually.
No,
we love travel.
We love travel. We love to have fun. That's what we do. How many intricately carved destinations have you been to?
Ooh, I've been to about 50 countries by now.
How many have you been to last year?
17.
17? Just about. I think between 17 and 20.
How do you choose travel destinations?
Cheap flights and places we want to go to in the right season, close to where we are. This is true. Naick is so tall. Can he slam dunk?
Yes, I can. I used to play basketball. I'm pretty good at it actually, but I quit because of a knee injury. How heavy is your big backpack?
Between 11 and 13 kilograms, depending on how much stuff we carry. Probably by the time you get out of Taiwan, it's 25. But
It is 12 kilos.
we have to smuggle the instant noodles home, people. Is it difficult for Naick to buy long pants in Asia?
I don't know, I've never bought long pants in Asia. I usually buy them when we are home. I don't wear long pants a lot when we're abroad,
Shorts.
especially when it's hot. I usually wear shorts. Have you ever come across an infestation of bugs in a hotel room?
Not really an infestation, but we have come across the occasional giant cockroach. Especially before we started filming. In Sri Lanka it was quite
Yeah.
not unusual to find the occasional cockroach. What we usually do is we panic and we have someone else remove it. Serious question.
Dum 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 dum.
What is your answer to the meaning of life?
Ooh, it's a difficult one. I have to answer in one sentence. I think just have fun and be happy.
That is basically what we try to do.
Yeah.
And then we want the mole.
Ever since I make the joke about my mole on the train, people have been asking us about the mole, so it's time to show the mole.
Like, I don't think, I mean, this is not, the world is not ready to see this.
So there, you've seen the mole.
After rapid fire, I think that concludes all of the,
Yep.
basically all of the questions that we got. I think that concludes this video, which probably turned into like a 3-hour video, about as long as it took us to record this.
Yep, indeed. Thank you for watching. More videos about Taiwan and Taipei coming
Up
after this.
very soon. And if you're still around at this point in the video, a really big thank you for sticking with us. And we shall see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.